Oh, she works.
She's
I know
good.
she works.
She's good. No, she's definitely consistent.
What does she teach?
Eighth grade,
She does the
eighth
science.
grade science.
Yeah.
But then they have I mean, that SOL is 6th, 7th, and 8th grades.
Yeah. That was the first year last year.
So she's having to review all the 6th and 7th grade stuff too. David, what's going on with the girls softball team?
With who?
The girls
We're
softball
we're
team.
recording now.
I know they
so
lost. They lost the
We're
other
recording.
day.
Lost 3-0.
Really?
Yeah.
Essex,
Oh, I knew that one.
Westmoreland, Northumberland.
I can imagine what's going on. I think they're just not as good as they think they are. Yeah. And if you don't,
Okay, David. We're recording. Write your comments down. Write your comments down for later.
All right, everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's time I call the meeting back to order. Ms. Moles said you have the floor.
Alrighty, thank you for that, and thank you all for coming tonight. Just wanted to go ahead and start off by reading over the notice of proposed real property tax increase that you'll see in the paper on Wednesday. And this will just kind of refresh your mind of some numbers that we talked about at last week's meeting. The County of Richmond, Virginia proposes to increase property tax levies. Assessment increase. The total assessed value of real property, excluding additional assessments due to new construction or improvements to property, exceeds last year's total assessed value by 30.86%. The tax rate, which would levy the same amount of the real estate tax as last year when multiplied by the new total assessed value of real estate with the exclusions mentioned above, would be 54 cents per $100 of assessed value. This rate will be known as our lowered tax rate, and also to put it in terms of it's also our equalized tax rate. The County of Richmond proposes to adopt a tax rate of 60 cents per $100 of assessed value. The difference between the lowered tax rate and the proposed tax rate would be 6 cents per 100, or 11%. This difference will be known as the effective tax rate increase. Individual property taxes may, however, increase at a percentage greater than or less to the above percentage. Based on the proposed real property tax rate and changes in other revenues, the total proposed budget of the County of Richmond will exceed the current year by 1.122421, or 3.4%. And so that public hearing has been scheduled for Thursday, May 9th at 7 o'clock here in the public meeting room. So that will be in the paper for Wednesday. We also talked about sharing some information on CIP plans. And I don't have a final put together for the county as of yet, but some things that we see on our CIP each year are Sheriff's Office court building HVAC, which we put in $15,000. Of course, that's been something that's dinged us pretty hard this past year, or the current year that we're in, because those units were all put in at the same time out there, and they're starting to kind of drop off slowly but surely. And those are things that you really can't plan for. They just die. So that's one of the things that definitely will be in our CIP. A zero-turn mower was also listed for CIP for FY25. We do have 2 folks cutting now. We did have last year an incident where the mower was in the shop, and Junior pulled his own personal mower in to just keep the grass up. So that is in the CIP for the amount of $9,000. Public safety radios for $15,000 we always see in our CIP. The 3 big things that I want to add this year are voting machine replacement. We need to be thinking about that. That's something that's going to be coming up very soon. Cost for that are to be determined. Haley has been talking to a couple of different companies, and I don't think she's gotten back final numbers yet, but that's something that we need to keep in the back of our mind. Striker, I talked to you about that last week, and I'll hand out some information that Mitch gave me. Certainly no decisions needed on this tonight, but it'll give you some information to review. And you'll see in this that it's replacing several different pieces of equipment that EMS use. It's a total cost of $230,000. The company has talked to Mitch about doing I believe it's a 5-year, 5 fixed annual payments of $47,232. I don't really know if this is something that needs to be in our CIP or just something that needs to come up at some point for discussion. And then the last thing is our website rewrite. Chris and I have been working with some folks on the website rewrite. That's going to come in at like $26,000. But I certainly think that that is going to be money well spent. Right now, the website that we're using is pretty antiquated, not really user-friendly. There's so much more that we could be doing on that website to get information out about county events, school events, emergency alerts. There's just a lot that we could do with a new portal.
How much was that?
Website rewrite is going to be in the neighborhood of like $26,000. So those are some things that we'll be looking at. I am going to flip through. Trey, did you want to talk on this, or you want me to talk through it?
Wait a minute before you go
Okay.
to that.
Okay.
Excuse me. HVAC for the courthouse. How much does it cost to replace one of those units?
For this building? For that building?
That building.
It depends on where it is. I replaced 2 down there not too long ago. One was like $11,000-12,000. One was $26,000-27,000.
Yeah, that was the one with the
because
crane.
the crane
right?
has to come in, it's a whole lot more expensive. And the other thing that we're finding with those systems is, as you all know, and probably more familiar with it than I, is, the old coolant. Once it gets to a point, we just had Pritchard & Fallon come around the other day to do service checks. And once it gets to a point where it needs that coolant to be recharged, you can't get the old coolant. And so it's almost like it's a disposable unit at that point. You just got to replace it. And they've basically told us that we have one down there and we have one over at the old circuit court building that is on life support, is what they told us. So, the one at the old circuit court, we don't use that building a lot. And so hopefully that one will limp along and be productive for the summer. But, on the other hand, we don't want it to limp so much that it causes current bills to be through the roof either. Are you thinking that maybe we need more money?
I think it needs to be, I feel like it needs to be up, because you just said you got 2 that are on their last leg, and you don't have enough money in there to cover that.
And so then that cost just kind of taxes the buildings and grounds budget.
Yeah, I know. But I think that's something that you need to,
I could definitely increase that for CIP.
especially when you know you got 2 of them that they might make it all summer and they may not make it
A month.
this weekend.
Okay.
But I'd look at that number.
Okay. Any other comments on CIP projects that we may be thinking on for the next year or so.
Do we keep these on a cycle, or is it just replace as needed for typically all of these assets?
So it seems like the last probably 10 years or so, we've just kind of put 15,000 out for those HVAC units down there. Same thing for public safety radios, we just kind of throw that out because there's always somebody, one department or the other, that needs those.
Nobody else has any comments? Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
All right, and so Trey put this together, and so I felt that it was useful to share with you guys just some capital improvement projects that they are looking at over the years. It's PDF, so yeah, that's the way you sent it to me.
That's right.
I'll scroll through it.
Not a small file. In no particular order, the slideshow is not in particular order. Just each year, I think, and I gave Ms. Mothershead a copy of this a little while ago, and previously before that, each year, I would always update Morgan with a spreadsheet of our capital improvement. I'm assuming he may have submitted that in years past, but as soon as I got here and was hired, I think within the first 3 or 4 months, I did a facilities check, and we started projecting, what are some capital improvement plans, what can we do 1 year, what's an emergency, what's 3, 5, 10 years of that, and then trying to get the ages and history of everything we have and putting a timeline on them. First thing was just transportation. I gave you guys a handout, a booklet about 3 or 4 months ago. Transportation gave you the history and the dates and the ages of the buses and the mileage at the time and all the cars, and so that's still still there. We do have a bus, the last bus coming through COVID, so we've been extremely fortunate in the last couple of years to begin to take advantage of the COVID funds to help us with the transportation department. Also, with some of the HVAC needs, there was a drastic need. But that was a guesstimate. If we want to keep that 15-to-1 ratio, is basically 1 bus a year to the next, 1 bus a year to the next to keep that up. So that's our plan. Luckily, we got 3 with the COVID. We're going to be able to get 1 more, and then we're going to be in a situation that you have to strive to. And the 200,000 is obviously 1.5. Is an average. So they're about $120,000, $130,000 a bus now. They're about a year and change out when you order one. I can't go out and order one right now. I think we have a little over $100,000 left in our CIP fund. So projecting what a bus is going to cost, and then when it shows up a year later. So we'll have to have some funds, in that CIP to or to be able to purchase it. So I want to make sure the money's there. But that's the transportation. You guys are aware of that. CIP paving, RCE, middle school, Rappahannock High School. I've been talking with VDOT and talking with Dave and just chatted with him the last couple of years. I've noticed that he said that some of the buses, where the buses were coming from the high school and where the buses originally were part of state. So we'll go back and forth and talking about how they can help us if possible. And it would really be the front entrance of the high school. Now all the way around the side of the gym and all that's in great shape still. The area in the high school parking lot in front of the elementary is in good shape. I took $28,000 last summer when we had the money left over, and you have a quick piece of time to turn something around. I didn't have time to rip up all of the high school and all the elementary, so you think about that and you seal everything we had, which is some of the best asphalt we had, and then sealed it and then repaired a lot of pothole areas. And so then, that area really looks nice if you go by there. So that was to preserve that piece of asphalt for as long as possible. Some of those you'll see just the cracks and all if you've been in and around. Even the part on the drop-off from the elementary school is probably something that we'll need to consider. We haven't lost any kids in any holes yet, but as maintenance, we do go out there and try to patch up some that pop up. We do also know that has to be a little bit thicker, not just for cars to go through a couple inches. We do have tractor trailers that come through there and drop off all the food to the deliveries. So when you go and get an estimate, I think it was 2 years ago, we had full-blown estimates for that into the elementary school and also for the high school, and they were about $125,000 a piece then. We didn't update and have them come back through this year to get 2 or 3 people survey because they got to do footage and depth and a guesstimate, but that was current what that was at that time. So this CIP was really put together most of the fall into the winter. Any questions on the asphalt? But
How do you come up with prices on those, on re-asphalting?
Branson, I got a guy that I know pretty well. He shows up, he does a guesstimate of how much footage, and he talks about how much depth that you have to put in, and then runs the numbers, and it calculates, spits out a number.
Okay.
And that's with milling, and they'll take it up. If they
Okay.
can't reuse it, you know, they'll take it to their plant and reuse it somewhere else.
Okay.
In some cases, we have to talk about, we did that at the technical center years ago, it was about 125,000 there. But in a lot of areas, we had to go deeper because
Right.
there's a lot of bus traffic around there. And it didn't take 3 or 4 years later, that certain times when they turn that bus, there's some spots that are just, the weight is taking it.
Okay.
So in some areas, you might want to consider a little bit depth where the tractor trailers come in or the buses. So the high school, in front of the high school, we do have buses that come in front of that. Drop off, we don't with the cars, so.
Right.
That's part of that calculation. Gutter replacement, a couple years ago, we put together, it was about $19,000, and since I've talked with some other companies then, it's probably in the 20s. So I'm guesstimating 20% over to 30,000. Hopefully get it cheaper than that. And that's a company out of Richmond. Allison's won't touch that part of the building. They'll touch some smaller stuff, but you have to have a company from Richmond, someone come in and to do the rest of that. And that's on the back side of the building. I think, you know, it's definitely a need if you look at those pictures. This is just the expansion of the community meeting room. I know when Morgan was here years ago, we'd gone and talked about, you know, once the other buildings, infrastructures you guys have, this is an opportunity to be a community meeting place, or an additional one. And we talked to EMS, we talked about an opportunity to have an open floor plan, be able to put tables in and out, be able to have trainings in there, whether it's EMS trainings, whether it's bus trainings, we have transportation trainings, when we have 20 or 30 people in there. We sometimes rely on the auditorium. You know, this room is used a lot. That's not exactly always laid out for, you know, the perfect meeting room. To have that as like a uniform area for, you know, anybody in the county just kind of sign up to use that facility. So that was something that's been, I think it's a few years away, but I think as, you know, as Coggin Furniture building gets renovated, that this is something to consider. So. Metal detectors, bag screeners, these are actually ones from Westmoreland. We do not currently have them that to walk through. We haven't purchased them yet. We still wind at activities and games. We don't do that currently at the school. Kids come freely. We at the moment. But if we do go and if you look at the prices, you Google it and find the prices. They're about, I think it's $9,000 per metal detector walkthrough. The bag screeners to put kids' bags through that is a lot more than that. If we were to do them minimally 4 per school, you have the front of the high school that gets dropped off with cars, you have the side of the high school with the buses, you have the kids coming in from the back parking lot. If you were to go that route to get 500 kids in the building in about a 20-minute time frame and then get every bag checked, if we need to go to that in the near future, it's still on our radar. We have not opened that door yet. We do screen for athletics. We don't do for during day-to-day. We are the only school left that does not, in the northern neck that is. LED lighting, you guys are probably familiar with that. All these lights are, you know, once they start going out, you're gonna have to replace the whole fixture. And so we're considering every summer taking a classroom, or as they go, as they break, you know, we're stockpiling it and we're just attacking them a little bit at a time. It'd probably take 2 to 3 years to actually get that done. No major need to do it. However, they're just not, if it's not LED, they're just not purchasing or making the old type of lighting. So you can't buy the bulbs. So we did go out last year and bought several bulbs to try to put them away, and then we're just buying them. This is the replacement emergency generator. This is the one on the middle school, and that's the old generator from the old high school. So you can imagine we've definitely lived the life of it. Something like that, if we were to go down, that does hold all of our fiber optic, all of our data systems, and all of our network all goes through that infrastructure. So that's one of those things that we need to consider somewhere down the road, replacing it. And there's a backup generator, so it's just we would you have to put it on your CIP. And that would probably something that we go with the company, if possible, to pay for it over a 2 to 3 year period to take that money down instead of one-time cost. 1983, that building was built. All these heaters are still there, so we're going on what? 40 years now. I said 40 years those heaters, they're cranking out, but eventually we need to have some sort of long-term plan to consider replacing those as they go. And we've been repairing them, so they're just like the HVAC units you guys talked about. eventually they're gonna go, so you have to have a plan for them. And I've got two at my house that I don't know when they're gonna go. They came with the house and they just keep working every day, but they're long past their life. Next one's a Cisco voice phone system. New technology made the current system obsolete. E-rate funding. Hopefully we can get some support with that. But if we could use some additional funding, sometimes we get some technology funding to do that. And that would be, that's going to be something we need to consider, not the highest priority. Media center renovations. If you're looking at libraries, you can tell the carpet from that picture. It's been several years from a lot of carpeted areas. Probably need some new carpet. They're pretty much worn out. And we could do smaller sections at a time instead of having, that's a huge library. That's a huge library. If we had to do sections of it, we might be able to piecemeal that, a little bit better and kind of take out some books and then and then kind of make our way around the room. Bus to school communication systems, we talk about this off and on. I know Mr. Thomas is familiar with, heard about this type of stuff. If we had to go to that system where we have all of our transportation and buses department, if we went that route, this is not something that's highest on the table, but it's something that we thought, if it comes down the pipe, being able to communicate to every bus, in the system, and then being able to contact the schools in a timely manner. Years ago, it was the CBs. I think we've kind of we moved to the cell phones, which isn't really safe. And so that's something that we put on our CIP. It's something we need to consider down the road. I'm not sure if it's one of those top of the list either.
Say something about your cell phone?
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off, but y'all currently pay for about a month for the cell phones.
Correct.
Have them on in the bus. Yeah. And it works. You just gotta be patient to be able to pull off if you use them. Yeah. And most time it's not that far away to get that done. With that concept in mind, it's much safer probably than having a walkie-talkie, a type handheld device where you're talking while you're driving.
Yeah.
So I will say that it's probably that. And on the school bus, somebody was just telling me the other day for the school bus, I'm not all this into electric vehicles, but they're saying they're trying to promote electric school buses heavily, and maybe some opportunities.
Yeah.
I don't say I'm the one that wants it. I'm just saying it's supposed to out there.
Yeah, $300,000 a piece.
Well, they said there was monies available if you went that route.
We keep applying for the grants every year.
We've tried to apply for those grants. The last couple of times that we've applied, we have not qualified for them. But we keep trying.
I just tell you what the chat is on the street.
Oh, no, we hear every time. We keep applying for it, but we also know, unfortunately, I can get 2.5 buses for that, and we're just not at that point where and I didn't want to be the first one to go and get one. Then you gotta have a charging station, then you gotta have someone, a technician that works on it.
It's a lot bigger picture than what.
Oh, no, but I think it's good to
I
discuss.
just said, that was what people been.
Yeah, I think it's good to discuss it though, because that is out there, and then they only have about a couple hour charging, so really you're a town run. You're not gonna be able to take them to activities and back. They're just a town run, so. The other one, the lights back that was the actual current lights for the Little League when that was back there, I don't know, 20 years ago. So it's really, we strive not to play many games underneath of those lights. So if we ever go to pursue that, that would be poles, because they're grandfathered in to use the old wooden poles.
Right.
But if you start doing restructures, then you have to put cement poles in. And and that's, you could probably go and get less poles than we used to use years ago. When you used to have 6 poles, you're down to about 3 or 4.
Right.
And this is something previous county administrator, we had discussed and kicked around, that if we ever thought about moving, transportation fuel options, one of the locations was outside of Mackey Thompson. We've discussed other options if we ever had to go to that, which would be clearing out that where everybody gets gas now. Isn't, like I said, isn't the highest priority, but we had talked about the various, localities and all of our EMS and police and all that. They're currently using it now, and it's working, it's convenient. But if we ever had to have a fueling station off campus somewhere else, we had looked around other places to locate that. The HVAC efficiencies, we have been fortunate, I'll back up a little bit, that all the old wing, we put all new HVAC units. The new wings are only 8 or 9 years old, so they're in still good shape. Obviously, the new addition came with new HVAC units. We do have some on the old elementary school, so this is what that's referring to. The old elementary school with some of the old HVAC units are getting to the end of their life. That cooler tower and the boiler, you see that out there. I'm not sure what date on that is. I'd have to check with Jim or the maintenance group to see what age that is, but I could see in the near future, out front of our Rappahannock building, if we were to go to our doors are antiquated. Some of the mini doors in and around the buildings came with the building. And if we were to replace those with the secure doors, windows, and locking systems, this is pretty much a cost for those. And that's just, I think it's for both. That must be a duplicate slide. And this was update, renovate the auditorium, lighting and sound. I think we could probably add all those lights in there, those fixtures too, which they're not made either. So it's the new LED. None of those were LED, what, 8, 9, 10 years ago. So as they go, they won't be able to be replaced with the same units. So that'll be a piecemeal over time versus I don't think we'll be able to afford it all at one time. This was, I think it's 2029-30, our 20-year warranty will run out on that RCES, the elementary school system on that end. So the 20-year warranty runs out. And the replacement cost estimates, that's an estimated $680,000. Now obviously we would look at that and see how we would make or extend them much life as possible, you know, with systems like that. When you start to run out of your roof warranties.
Have you had to do any maintenance on that roof?
Minimal, so we're fortunate about that. And we do have 2 good maintenance directors, and we do have a good system with Honeywell that, in doing, over the last few years, we've had to replace some minor stuff, but I can't remember any major stuff on the elementary. I just know that we're getting to the end of that life on it, so we put that out there to say, you know, it's kind of like mine at home. They're way past the life, but I'm gonna see how far they take me. Charging stations, as we move forward, this is something we hopefully strive to build in their technology money. And their technology money are funds from the state also. We kind of combine that with it. So if we have any money that we can use in that, we try to pull it out of there. If we don't, you know, we'll try to find that locally. And so to be able to charge laptops consistently is always an issue with when you got, you know, 1,300 laptops. We only have 1 or 2 more of those. I think some of the older ones, we've got several playground equipment back there. They're in really good shape. I even went back there again today. This one particular one, we've definitely extended the life of it. You know, we need to clean it back up, keep cleaning, but the bolts are starting to come through as the kids are sliding up, so we're trying to repair them. And it's like, once the fading goes on for a lot of years, you've kind of worn it out, and I don't think you can bring that life back out of it once the sun really beats that plastic up. So that's the only one. There's about 5 of them back there. That's one of them is just, you know, looks a lot older than the rest of them. No particular order. That's just stuff we put together to make sure that we don't forget, that we're not surprised by something if it breaks. So our biggest, and usually our immediate needs, when we sit down and talk about a CFP, we talk about the funds we might have left in that, it's usually transportation, buses, because we got to keep that life cycle, because that is a day-to-day operation. We can't lose that on. And then if there are things like the gutters, and last year we chose to do the asphalt to seal all of that good stuff and fix any little small repairs we could. That was what we used last summer CIP, and I think we've sat on that amount all year long because of the construction. We wanted to make sure that we had at least that if we went over for the project, and I don't think we went over. So a lot of times it's tough for me to project big projects in the summer because I don't have the money in hand. It's like, and I'm not going to do an asphalt project this summer because we only have 100 some in there, and that starts probably back in December, January when we start putting in bids. So there won't be any big projects this summer. So if we do any, it's going to probably be a 1.5 years away. So on those things, so we will strive to patch whatever we have out there and keep it going for 12 more months. Anybody have any questions?
You got a total?
No, I think it's probably in the spreadsheet, but not in that one. That was more of a presentation. But I can get to you.
Okay.
I can get to you. Not a problem.
With your school buses, you made the comment of not having enough in the funds to be able to do that. Do you have to pay outright when you order it, or can you, how does that work?
We
Well-
pay once it comes in. Once
Okay.
we receive it, then we would pay the invoice for it.
Okay.
And a few years ago, Mr. Thompson knows this too, when we bought 3 and we paid over 3 or 4 years, I think we bought 3 of the ones from Georgia and paid over 4 years to get those.
Okay.
We paid those off this past year, so, last year now. But being a year and a half out, sometimes we need to probably have that set aside. I mean, like I say, we can pay for it, but if we send back 250,000 and we split it, I don't wanna go buy a bus if I only have 100,000 and then the bus costs me 140. I don't know if I'm gonna get bailed out, so.
No, I understand that. Metal detectors, I mean, I think it's inevitable at some point we're gonna be having those in schools. I hate to think of the idea of why we need it, but it's probably gonna happen. But I'm curious, is there any insurance savings for having the things? I mean, is there a different rate for schools with, or?
I don't think I've checked that, I'm sure.
I don't know, but I do have a meeting with our insurance rep coming up, so I'll certainly ask that question.
I mean, I kinda wonder if it's something that 10 years it pays for itself, I don't know. I mean, you gotta buy another
I haven't
10
asked
years,
that
but.
one. I just know it's an expensive proposition. Then you got 3 buildings, and then we talked about it the other day, we don't have anything, don't have anything here, we don't have anything in school office, they just walk right in. You know, should we put a buzzer out there? Probably should put a buzzer out there, you know, and so we talked about it in the staff, but then, you know, we have all our transportation, kind of, before they get on, they'll hit the restroom, get some water or something, walk in and out, and we need to have swipe cards for every one of them. We're like, all right, well, that's a little bit more than I thought it was gonna be. And we didn't have to worry about Kelly at the front office hitting the buzzer button the whole time. So that's discussions we talk about. Is that worth another $10,000 or $15,000? Is safety, is that where we're at in society? Most everybody else in Warsaw is open, right? How many buses you have to push in? So I hate to sound like I'm unsympathetic to the cause of it. I'm like, I think I'm good, we're good. Y'all lock your door if you feel that, you know. So it's, I have to take that on when I have staff members that talk about, well, all the schools have buzzers, why don't we? And then I have to handle that. But then most every business around here it's just change of taking life, I guess, if you go out there. But that's where society has driven us, unfortunately.
And I mean, I'm not saying we need to do it right now, but, you know, unfortunately, if we had an event, it isn't something that you can put off to the following year. It's gonna have to happen, you know.
Well, and it's every school, and it's extremely labor intensive, because now you have guidance counselors, teachers, and people, and all that didn't sign up for that, wasn't part of their small writing on their job description.
Yeah.
And the discussion and situations that arise from that isn't always positive. And then checking the bags, and then when someone comes in late from school, you've got to have run them through there too. And I don't want to say safety's not important, but where's the safety piece with the convenience piece? And then, you know, I don't want to get to that point where we feel like we're in a jail.
No,
That's
no.
where I didn't want to go to yet. Because I don't feel like that's where we're at. In Richmond County, I think we have great school systems. You go up down the hallway, most kids, you look, they're in the classrooms, you know, they're doing what they're supposed to do. I don't feel that's a major threat. If anybody wanted to do something, unfortunately, they can, any given game or event or something, it's, you know, society's wide open. If they wanted to find a back door to get in, I'm sure they could find it, unfortunately.
Well,
Even if everything's locked.
Yeah, our metal I mean, do they actually catch many people with weapons or anything in local schools, or is it more of a deterrent?
More
By doing
vaping.
that, it keeps them from
More
bothered?
vaping is the biggest issue, little vaping packets.
Yeah,
the
okay.
Vaping, whatever they use
All right.
for metal and whatever, they find it more of that stuff than it is any weapons.
Okay,
But it's more,
a lot of that,
that's
all right.
that's the biggest use, so. that's something else we fight too.
Staff to monitor them, that's gotta be put into the equation as well, right?
They're right, and then you've got it, what, 2, 3 doors at every building?
So you gotta hire extra help to,
Yeah. So
or
it's,
some kind of compensation for who's there, I guess, I don't know.
I hear the stories elsewhere, and I'm like, I'm not ready to open that door yet, so, you know, I don't know where it's going. So if you guys don't have any questions, or fire away, thank you.
Thank you.
With that,
Yep.
no, I'm not, I'm just making a comment in general. It's like all the HVAC upgrades and replacements, and, you know, you were talking about some, we're thinking about the school. Do we have somebody that goes around, the same person that looks at all county buildings, or same group?
So we have, we pretty much depend on Pritchard and Fallon.
Okay.
At this point, several years ago, it was one company for here, one company for there, but I feel like that's all been pulled together into one. And so they come and do kind of like a maintenance check. And that's when they tell us, you know, what systems
Yeah.
we have on life support.
Y'all use Honeywell,
We
right?
use Honeywell, we
That's
have a
what I was-
contract with Honeywell.
Mhm.
I mean, I wonder if there's any value to have the same group, whatever it is, and then, you know, be able to almost map out your scheduled replacement. I know you can't stick to that, you always have ones that fail, but at least you can kind of get an idea, stay ahead of it. We hate to have all of them fail same year, really hot year,
Just
so.
remember, they're all salesmen too.
I get that, I get that, but I mean,
I love the fact that you can pay for it over 5 years, so yes, we're in more than one agreement where we have to buy a product and it, you know, you pay for it over a period of time. Or you buy 5 HVAC units and you pay for it over 5 years, so we try not to get into those. I don't like to have any bills carry over, but sometimes we have to.
Yeah, it's definitely an expense, a burden that is sometimes unplanned for. Okay, well, thanks for sharing that
Thank
information,
you, guys.
I appreciate it.
Maybe that's what happened when we were there. They'd all failed
Where?
at school.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They
All
All
were-
the air conditioning we had.
They were all,
Open the window.
they were all
Yeah,
being
open the
replaced.
window. Thanks, Trey.
So thank you for just checking in on my kids' game.
Okay,
I'm
so,
still catching. Y'all have anything else for me?
No,
Catch
we're
you in
good.
the game.
Thank you.
Okay, so stay.
so last week, we, went over lots of budget facts. I asked if you all wanted to do a line by line or page by page, and there didn't really seem to be a concern with that. I have fielded some questions on the budget, over the last couple of days. So I guess at this point, I'm open to any questions that you all may have or discussion that you may want to have amongst the board members.
Well, first off, if you can remember them, what they were, why don't you let the rest of us in on the questions that you would,
So yes, JR was the one that had the most questions. I did talk to David.
sorry, you can dock his pay.
I did talk to David, just discussing the,
I mean, I almost want to ask the same question that you've already,
right. I think a lot of his questions were kind of general, just trying to understand how we run the budget and what we plan for each year. Let's see, what did we talk about?
I
we
mean, I can
talked
go
about
down the
some-
list, but I think 95% of them, that's what it was.
Yeah, and he had a lot of questions about like the categorical aid when we look at revenue and why things were decreased. So we talked a lot about like grants that are not in effect or grants that are slowly decreasing, like our school resource officer grant, litter control, USDA. Of course, USDA, we used to be really fortunate with them in getting police cars, and that program for vehicles has pretty much disappeared for the time being. Certainly hope that that comes back. Let's see, what else, JR? We also talked about permitting cost. There was a decrease in permitting cost from last year, and that was just because we increased it last year's for the current year budget because of the solar activity, and we knew that we wouldn't have that in this coming year with no pending projects. So that was decreased. Let's see, we talked about the sheriff's department budget a while and talked about that restructuring and just the cost of supplies across the board. Your sheriff's office is pretty concerned about that because everything has gone up. And so if you look at their line item budget, they've got you know, other supplies, sheriff supplies, let's see, here's their line item. Police supplies, other operating supplies, office supplies. And if you look at their expenditure report, you know, a lot of those items are climbing, and, you know, they're already at a percentage that's over what we had budgeted for that.
They don't give you no more description on other supplies?
Well, I think other operating supplies and office, I mean, most of them, office supplies, of course, that's pretty self-explanatory. vehicle equipment and supplies, that again is self-explanatory. Police supplies would kind of be there, I guess, what they need in their vehicles. And then they have a category of other operating supplies, so everything else would kind of fall into that. I don't know if you have anything extra to add to other operating supplies, what they may, I think that's just kind of a catch-all of if it doesn't fit in one of these other categories. Anything else?
I had asked about the professional services. I didn't know
Oh, yeah.
what really fell in that field.
Yeah, and we see professional services in a couple of different categories, and what we pretty much use that for, you'll see the board professional services. We use it for attorney fees, we use it for the engineering fees. A lot of the reimbursable things that we're, expecting back, we'll pay out of professional services. And then in Chris's budget, the IT budget, of course, there's a lot of different subscriptions and professional services that he uses for IT programs that will come out of that line item as well. Any other questions or comments or concerns?
All are concerned.
My only other concern, and I'll stop talking, of course, I told you this, and you proved me that I should be fine, but I didn't know if we were allowing enough for the reassessment in 4 years. I don't know how you budget for that, because I guess you don't know what it will cost, but if you've got something, we've kind of looked at scale-wise increases, that was my only concern.
We use a track record of what it's been, right?
Is that what?
Well, we have until this year, but I think this year we may have been a little shy, and so that's why it was suggested that we increase it, just because, when you're planning for something throughout the year, it's one thing, but when you're planning for a cost in 4 years, you never know.
It'll be an increase, I'm sure. That's bidded out, correct?
It is, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of companies that do that type of work, so.
Are we all settled up with Pearson at this point?
I don't think we've received the last invoice from Pearson.
I know we paid him right now.
Yeah.
Joe, it wasn't that many years ago that we didn't budget for it. We just bit every 4 years, bit the bullet. And we started budgeting for it by what it was then, and we've just been kind of chasing it
That makes sense.
to get to the
Kinda
point
like-
where we are now.
Kind of like social services and that Child Services Act. You're always chasing that, in that child
Oh,
services,
yeah,
that,
the
Yeah.
CSA, you're always chasing that. Something else that we're always chasing, and we've talked about it today, is overtime with EMS and police. That's something, again, that it's real hard to catch. You never know. I think Mitch is at a good point right now where he's not having to use a lot of part-timers or run overtime, but it's still gonna be there.
All of that is one person getting hurt or getting sick,
Right.
Or weather.
or weather.
Whitney, can I ask you one question? And I should have asked Dr. Davis, but I wasn't thinking of it at the time. The 6 positions that you created, or that the school system created with the COVID money,
Okay.
are they still are those 6 positions still on the books?
Yes. One position is going away next year, but the rest of them we're trying to bring in, because it's, a nurse. We really have to have a nurse at all 3 schools. There's just too many students to not have 3 nurses. It's a teacher in there, a couple paras, which some of that, we're kind of, or have been able to in the last month, probably absorb into a teacher leaving. So it's kind of washing itself out, and not necessarily maybe in addition to the budget. And then I believe there's also a social worker in there. That was COVID money. That is another position in today's time that's essential to schools.
Okay, thank you.
Isn't there did y'all, setting up another position for, wrestling or some kind of,
Wrestling is going to be a
been
sport.
posted or something for, looking for?
Wrestling will be a sport. I'm pretty sure that's a winter sport, so we will need a head coach and assistant coach. And that's, in the big scheme of things, that's less than $5,000. Our coaches truly don't get paid a ton of money for the time that they put into the kids. And there may be other sports or something that doesn't get filled that can help wash those dollar amounts.
And I do think we're the only school in the Northern Act that doesn't have wrestling right now.
I think we are.
Yeah.
We are. And we had a lot of kids that asked for wrestling and wanted to participate in that sport.
You've got a teacher that used to wrestle.
Yes, we do. We do. I think he may help, and I think our director of food service is going to help out too.
Good.
He's coached us in the past.
Any other questions about a particular budget page? I do have that available that we could look at. I don't want to just bore you by going line by line.
I don't see any sense unless y'all do going it line by line. That's what I'm just asking, but everybody get, if they've got a problem with one or a question. Rather than sitting here just going through it line by line.
So I will flip over to remaining schedule. Of course, you all gave me the ability to put that ad in the paper. Of course, our schedule's a little different than it's been in the past, so it seems kind of strange. We'll have the May 9th tax rate public hearing, and I guess hopefully at that meeting, we'll be at a point where you can give me the ability to advertise for the May 23rd, because that will need to go to the paper. It'll be in the paper on the May the 15th, so I'll need to send it in on the 10th so that we meet the requirements that the state code provides. But certainly between now and then, we would be available to review other items, have another work session if there's something we want to dive deeper into. Whatever you all are comfortable with.
Excuse me. All right, are we ready to move on to May the 9th?
I guess so.
Okay.
So if we, I think to be on the safe side, we should just recess until then, in case something comes up that we may want to address. We're not locked in with having to advertise. I mean, I've advertised the May 9th meeting.
Okay.
But what do you think?
That's fine. We've done it in the past. Just remind me to, before I open the May 9th, to close
We'll close one before we open another.
these before we open the May 9th meeting.
Okay. Whitney, did you have anything else that you wanted to add from the school side, since we kind of talked about that last week, but you were not here?
I don't think so, not unless you guys have other questions you'd like for me to answer. I think Dr. Davis probably answered or spoke about the majority of the conversation last week.
You want to touch on this thing, Mitch's?
I will. he can
Am I
certainly.
reading this thing right, are the damn stretchers wearing out?
I don't know that.
Running, using them that much?
I don't know that they're worn out as they are, like we talked about earlier, just kind of, you get to the point where if something breaks on it, it's out of warranty. And so I think when the striker representative came in, she went through all of the life packs, she went through the stretchers, the Power Load, the Power Pro, the Stair Pros that they have, and made a replacement suggestion.
I mean,
So,
every time we get a new ambulance, it's got a brand new stretcher in the back of it, right?
right, yes.
So why are we replacing stretchers in ambulances that we're,
But yeah. And again, Mitch, if this is something that maybe I can put on the May agenda for Mitch to speak at a little bit better, but, you know, I think the life packs, the AED life packs that we have, he was somewhat concerned about those. The chest compression systems she reviewed, and they're at a point where they're out of warranty or out of cycle.
if we all lived our life worrying about if it's out of warranty and you gotta start all over again, none of us would ever have anything.
It would be good to have Mitch in.
I agree.
Because
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Mitch needs to definitely, talk about this. He's more familiar with these pieces of equipment, and I guess it's the what if of, you know, what if it breaks and we're not gonna be able to get replacement parts?
Then I guess we bite the bullet and buy a new.
At that point, you just buy. I did think that, you know, her offering the 5 fixed annual payments, of course, that's attractive for any county that's scraping the barrel or, you know, needing to buy equipment and without having to finance it. So it does seem like they're a company that would do that type of,
Was this company
Payment
invited in
plan.
to do this, or is this something they just did as a courtesy?
I believe Mitch had talked to this individual and she, you know, offered to come in and chat about the different,
It just sounded like
Products.
sales.
it could be a little bit of a sales pitch for sure. Yeah. He just kind of asked me to bring it up, but I'll certainly talk to him about doing a larger presentation, knowing that you all have the information that you can review prior to the May meeting.
So is this talking about replacing the equipment that we have like this with new stuff? Is that what this is saying? Okay, all right.
It sounds like a sales pitch to me.
But I mean, if you've got an AED that's 5 years old that you've used 8 times, it's kind of, you know.
Yeah.
How often they use them, that would be, I don't know, we'll have to look at
What's
it.
the life of them? I wouldn't know.
I could see the chest compression thing maybe needed.
Yeah. And the one thing I like that I don't even see on here is that thing they put under people and bump it up to get them up
Yeah.
off the floor. Oh, that was one of the neatest things I've ever seen for helping people's backs and everything. But I don't see that on here.
Oh, well, I think that, are those the things that they,
No, that wasn't a
Did this
strike off.
purchase-
That wasn't a strike
That was
off.
just
yeah,
something
that
that we
was the
got there.
striker, yeah.
And when you're talking about stretchers, is that the one that's,
It's the.
that's the
The
special one?
load.
Power
Yeah,
lift.
power
Power
lift,
load,
okay.
yeah.
Hey, them things were expensive when we bought them.
Exactly.
Why,
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, and it's a big chunk of the new ambulance is the striker system, it's in that.
Yeah, I mean, they tried me on it and it worked just fine and I didn't break it.
Have you tried anybody since?
Was that 20 years ago?
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, does anybody else have any other business, any questions, budget or otherwise?
No need.
Don't nobody say anything once. All right, then I guess we in recess until May the 9th. If you have any problems, get with Hope. We need to get back together, or
Okay.
we'll do that.
Thank you.
Get this one first, and then the second one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Y'all have fun.